SCHRADER is the founding director of JLIC. Rabbi SCHRADER had an idea almost 15 years ago now that a lot of college students come back to North America, not just America, but also North America, and on campuses. And his idea was to place educators, rabbis, couples to work with these students on campus. And what started 15 years ago has now turned into 16 campuses across North America, 2 in Ontario. There's Hashem, there might be a third, maybe even a 4th across Canada, who knows, by the fall. And it really is a tremendous kavod to have Rabbi SCHRADER here at our home once again. He came in for a very important event tonight. I'm sure many of you, all of you know, Zach Kay, the executive director of Hillel, is being honored at a tribute event. We actually just got a hold of a couple of tickets. If people want to come tonight, it's far. It's at the Park Hyatt downtown by Bloor. So if people are interested in coming, you can let me know. But that's why Rabbi SCHRADER is here, to give really thanks and akaratas up to Hillel for all they do in their partnership with us. Rabbi SCHRADER, b'vakasha.
Okay, thanks, and thank you for coming. And please make sure to eat while we're talking, so that you don't go undernourished today and whatever else. Okay. I'm going to try to mention a few different points. We may not succeed in connecting them, but hopefully you'll come out with something from this year. We'll start with a story, the details of which I don't remember well, but there was once a meshulach who went around to various communities trying to. He would collect money for whatever it was he was collecting money for, but he would give shiurim in that context. And he tried to explain that his job was to fill up the Sefer Torah of Am Yisrael. Following a notion that every Jewish person, there's another letter in the Sefer Torah in a representative kind of way. So sometimes letters in Sefer Torah, as the Sefer Torah gets older, they crack, the ink falls off. So you need a sofer to go around filling in the letters to make sure the Sefer Torah remains complete and kasher. He would say this, and apparently he liked this word that he said, and he went back to the Rebbe who sent him, and he told it over. This is what I told the people. He said, I would have put it differently, the Rebbe told him. Rather than saying that the letters were cracked and that the ink fell off and that the Sefer became puzzle, I would have used a different metaphor. Something spilt on the Sefer Torah, wax. Underneath the wax, the Sefer Torah is fine and complete. It remains the kosher Sefer Torah throughout. The problem is that you can't see the letters because there's something hiding them. Come on in. Please. I don't know if it's honor to sit next to you or not. But, okay. You should eat something. The Sefer Torah is complete. The letters are all there. But when something falls on them and you have to peel off the wax in order to be able to see the letters underneath. And that's really the job of those who go around teaching Torah. Parashat Shlach is a watershed of difficulty for Am Yisrael. We started in Parashat Lech Lecha with Avraham Avinu being told he's going to go to Eretz Yisrael, and he goes, and then he's told that his descendants are going to leave, and then they're going to come back, and the Geula is going to happen. The completion of the Geula of Am Yisrael coming back to Eretz Yisrael is going to take place, and it's about to take place. And we just want to get an idea of what's going on in Eretz Yisrael. We send Meraglim beforehand to find out, and suddenly everything falls apart. We're going to try to understand the nature of this falling apart. to some extent, the psychology behind how it happened. Also, the psychology about the repertory process, which is also described partially in Parshas Shlach, and what ultimate purpose the Chet HaMeraglim serves. Because I don't think it's just a Chet. I think it's a Chet, the tshuva of which serves a very powerful purpose as Am Yisrael goes on. So we're going to try to understand this. So we're going to start with a difficult pasuk, in which I'm going to give you a parush that I haven't seen inside, but that I would like to share with you nonetheless. Moshe Rabbeinu sends out the Meraglim, and it's interesting to note that according to the Rashba, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't pick the Meraglim. They sort of volunteered. The term kol with a tipcha nasivahem. Just go ahead. Must be seen in the back there. Is that these people felt arisen for this purpose of going and seeing what's going to happen, to take things. Anyways, they apparently go all over Eretz Yisrael, but the only place that gets mentioned specifically, except for the borders, is Hebron, right? And there's a difficult language grammatically in the pasuk by Hebron. I'm going to read you the pasuk. Maybe you can tell me the difficult language. It says like this. This is Perek Yud Gimel pasuk Chav Bet. Vayalu v'negev vayavo ad Hebron. I'm going to read it again. Tell me if you catch the difficulty. Vayalu v'negev vayavo ad Hebron. No?
Double verb. Vayalu.
Vayalu is plural, and vayavo is singular. That must be what you meant. This is a problem. Everybody went to the Negev, and then it says vayavo in the singular to Hebron. What happened over here? So Rashi quotes a medrash which answers the problem, but that at least leaves me feeling somewhat unsatisfied. All the Meraglim went to the Negev. Only Kaleb went to Hebron. Wow. You know, we're not really getting a warning for the switch from everybody to just Kaleb. It doesn't say Vayalu HaMeraglim B'Negev Vayavo Kaleb Ad Hebron. It doesn't say that. And also the report of the Meraglim seems to include a picture of Hebron. Because it says when the Meraglim get down to the really dirty stuff that they repeat, even though on some level it seems to be true, they say V'sham ra'inu et hanefilim b'nei anak min hanefilim. It seems to be referring to Arba and his three sons, the ones mentioned in this pasuk, V'sham achiman shishai v'talmai. So it sounds like the Meraglim did see the giants of Hebron, so it's hard to say that they weren't there. Now, a lot of you have learned Chumash, right? I think all of you, looking at who I'm speaking to, right? So you probably know that Rashi is much more likely to quote Midrashim in his Perush than the Rashbam, right? The Rashbam is more makpid on trying to avoid using Midrashim to interpret the Pshuto Shel Mikra. Over here, the Rashbam feels he has to. This difficulty in Pshat, going from the plural to the singular, he finds so difficult that he concludes. I'll read you the language of the Rashbam over here. Haggadah nireit Pshat. This Haggadah that only Kalev went to Hebron seems to be the Pshat. And for whatever reason, he's not bothered by the issues that I raised before, that they all seem to know about these great Anakim. So I'm going to tell you what I think, and it's connected to another pasuk. The pasuk goes like this. in describing Hebron in this pasuk, I'll read you the whole pasuk again. Vayalu v'negev v'yavo ad Hebron, v'sham achiman sheshavet talmai yilidei ha'anak, v'Hebron sheva shanim nivnita lifnei tzon Mitzrayim. Hebron was built 7 years before Tzon Mitzrayim. Now, who cares? This seems to be an irrelevant point in the Torah. Different Mefarshim try to explain what it means, what the significance is it pshat, how should it properly be understood. So I'm going to tell you my parish, which you can accept or reject, it's okay. Right. Parish goes like this. What's Hebron? Any of you ever been to Hebron? Who's been to Hebron from here? Almost everybody. I ask you, what's Hebron? Tell me what Hebron is. Anybody, just shout out. Hebron is Marat HaMachpelah. That's what it's all about, right? That's where Avram and Sarah and Yitzchak and Rivka and Yaakov Avinu and Leah are all buried, right? That's what Hebron is about. At what age do you think you remember hearing about Hebron? So shout out a number. Any of you can remember. 6, 4, 5. At a very young age. And you seem to have a notion of what Hebron is about already from that age, right? When you first heard about it, what's Hebron? Hebron is Marat HaMachpelah. Hebron is Kever Avot, right? That's what's important about it. Along comes the Meraglim to Hebron. And they ask somebody on the street, tell us about Hebron. And somebody on the street responds to them, where are you from? And they say, we're from Mitzrayim. And they say, oh, you're from Mitzrayim, so let me tell you about Hebron. You think you have ancient cities in Mitzrayim? You think Tzon, the famous city in Mitzrayim, is such a big deal? Hebron Sheva Shanim Nivnata Lifnei Tzon Mitzrayim. And the Meraglim say, oh, that's very impressive. What's happening over here? The Meraglim come to Hebron and look at Hebron like a tourist from Mitzrayim. Like in order to explain to them what's significant, what's important about Hebron, that it's such an ancient city, they have to put it in terms of Mitzrayim. You want to know what Hebron is? Hebron is an ancient city built 7 years before Tzon. And now the Meraglim are impressed. What has happened is that the Meraglim, in coming to Hebron in particular, and perhaps to Eretz Yisrael in general, are not identifying it with the land of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Not that they don't know. They know the facts. But somehow they don't see it that way. They don't experience it that way. The one who seems to experience it that way, uniquely, is Kalev. In effect, Kalev goes to Hebron alone. Is he with everyone else? Yes, he's with everyone else. Is everyone with him? They're all together. They sleep, probably within Daled Amos of each other. In their nap bags, sleeping bags, or wherever is their sleeping bag, or in the hotel that they go to. But the experience of Kalev in going to Hebron is completely different than the experience of Kalev going to the rest of the Meraglim. Kalev, Rashi quotes in Medrash, is Mishtateach al Kever Avot. he visits Marat HaMachpelah. Were the others there? I don't know. Maybe not at all. Can you imagine going to Hebron and not visiting Marat HaMachpelah? Or could you imagine visiting Hebron and going to Marat HaMachpelah and coming out of it saying, you know, I was at an ancient city in Israel, Hebron, Sheva Shanim Nivnata Lefnei Tzon Mitzrayim. I have a relative. We used to live in Drom Har Hebron, and when she was in high school, she visited us. We were living there at the time, and we took her to Marat HaMachpelah, and it was a very difficult experience for her because she, you know, you've all been there. Those of you who've been there, you know, it looks like an Arab place. It looks like a mosque. You know, you don't feel like you're walking into a shul. Maybe now it looks different than it looked then. All the Yitzchak in particular, unfortunate things happened since then. I'm not going to go into details, but her Jewish education was minimal, and the sense, you know, that she came to Israel, the land of the Jewish people, made a very powerful impact on her. Went to Matzada, made a very powerful impact on her. But when she went to Hebron, she didn't experience it the way one would have hoped she would have. The way I took for granted she would. Because I don't think she had learned Chumash, or at least not the way that you all have. And as a result, it just didn't hit home. It was like all this Muslim art and tapestries and whatnot, and you know, the fact that it's the kever of Abraham and Sarah and Yitzchak, Rivka, Yaakov and Leah gets lost. The Ramban points out that the worst things the Meraglim say about the Canaanite people, about how powerful they are, how strong they are, Moshe Rabbeinu says much more strongly in Sefer Dvarim. They're very powerful, they're very strong, everyone could say, who could stand up before them? Mi Amod B'fneihem. The question is one of simply of perspective. When you're coming back to Eretz Yisrael, what are you doing? Are you coming back? Or are you going there for the first time like you were never there before? The Jewish people, technically speaking, had never been there before. The question is, where's their mindset? And the mindset of 10 out of the 12 Meraglim, I know I'm leaving Yeshua out of the story. I don't have a clear-cut answer to where Yeshua, perhaps Yeshua was understood since he was so personally close to Moshe Rabbeinu that it was like he didn't count in the whole nisayon that the Meraglim underwent. Kalev, though, was more or less like everyone else, but he shone out by taking a different attitude. What was the mindset of Bnei Yisrael in coming out of Mitzrayim and going back to Eretz Yisrael? Now, we know that it was good, that it was positive, that they wanted to do it. But where was their head, really? And the ones excited to come and visit Israel for the first time, the Meraglim, they came to Eretz Yisrael like Mitzrim. They didn't identify as Mitzrim in a national sense. It wasn't like they viewed themselves as Egyptians. But they did not view themselves as natives of Eretz Yisrael or misplaced. You know, there's when I first came in Aliyah, there was a notion in Israeli psychology called Tispochet Yaldei Gush Etzion. Anyone here studying psychology? I didn't study psychology. You are, yeah? So you'll be interested in this. You'll all be interested in this, but you'll be especially interested. The complex of the children of Gush Etzion. We're not talking about, when we talk about this complex of children who are growing up in Gush Etzion today. In 1948, Gush Etzion was captured, was more than captured, it was captured and massacred by the Jordanian Legion. And all the women and children had been removed from the area, leaving only the men. Almost all the men were killed. And in that context, they stopped the Jordanian soldiers from reaching Yerushalayim before a certain point. It was a crucial moment, and the next day Ben Gurion decided to establish the state. And it was a tremendous event, and it was a very horrible event as well. At the same time, something great and something terrible that took place. All the children of Gush Etzion were orphaned from their fathers. And they were sent to different places to live, some to certain kibbutzim, some lived in Yafo. These are people who, if they were like between the ages of 0 and 10 at the time, how old are they today? In 1940, 65 years. Between the ages of 65 and 75 today. You know, their psychological difficulties are no longer a practical issue in Medinat Yisrael. But apparently they were known to have collectively a particular difficulty, and that was that they identified as being from a particular place that they weren't living in. All of them apparently, or nearly all of them, sensed that they were from Gush Etzion and they weren't living there. And the neighborhood where Yeshivat Har Etzion today is, Alon Shvut, within Gush Etzion, it's called Alon Shvut because it was the tree. There was a particular tree that you can see apparently from very close to Emek Ha'ela, which was close to the border of Medinat Yisrael when Jordan was controlling that area, and they could look from afar. And they could see that tree, and they knew that tree was in Gush Etzion, so they knew they were seeing Gush Etzion. And they said, that's where we're from. And they did this every year on Yom HaZikaron. So there are apparently psychological difficulties that you develop as a result of growing up feeling that you live somewhere else than the place that you live. Not a psychologist, I don't know what these difficulties are, but they're apparently, and it's called, it became known in Israel, in the psychological world, as the complex of the children of Gush Etzion, Tisbochet Yaldei Gush Etzion. In a certain way, all the Jewish people are supposed to have Tisbochet Yaldei Gush Etzion, who don't live in Eretz Yisrael. There's supposed to be a sense that I'm here, but I'm really from somewhere else. And the Jews in Mitzrayim certainly were expected to have that mindset. And this pasuk and the whole event of the Meraglim is basically pointing out that they didn't. Because if you know you're going back to the place where you're from, you take one attitude. And if you feel that, no, I'm basically from somewhere else, I'm from Mitzrayim, I mean the fact that I'm a minority in Mitzrayim, that they don't treat me as a citizen, that I was a slave in Mitzrayim, okay, true, but still, that's where I'm from. And when I come to Eretz Yisrael, how do I measure Eretz Yisrael? How do I measure Hebron, the place in Eretz Yisrael where we're from? The Hebron, Sheva Shanim Nivnata Lefnei Tza'an Mitzrayim. I measure it from the eyes of a Mitzri. I put it in context of the Egyptian mindset. this is not going to work. And it doesn't. This generation is going to hear the 10 Meraglim, the Eidah Hara'ah, and if you go through the Parsha this week, you'll see the term Eidah and Eidah Hara'ah more than once. It's not always clear whether it's talking about the Meraglim or whether it's talking about the whole Jewish people. When the Gemara in Sanhedrin quotes the halacha that an Eidah is 10 people, and we know that because the Meraglim are called an Eidah, 10. The pasuk that's quoted there, I think I would have understood as referring to all of Am Yisrael, but that's part of the issue over here. The Meraglim are representative of Am Yisrael. That's the upshot. What the Meraglim say is what the Jewish people want to hear. If they hadn't wanted to hear that, if they'd wanted to hear what the Kalev and Yoshua was saying, they would have heard Kalev and Yoshua. They would have justified at least the minority report. In the United States Supreme Court, I know I'm in Canada now, you must have heard of the United States though, right? In the United States Supreme Court, very often minority opinions end up becoming accepted when it's understood that they were really correct, sometimes many years later. In particular, certain in civil liberty issues, there are things that the Supreme Court didn't accept. They got accepted later on. The minority report of Yeshua and Kalev would have been accepted if that's what the people really wanted to hear. They didn't want to hear it. They wanted to hear the Meraglim. Just like in Hilchot Tfilah, the minyan represents all of Am Yisrael. In the Meraglim were completely representative of all of Am Yisrael, unfortunately in a negative way. I haven't. Does anyone want to say something or ask something? You can if you want. You can raise your hand or you can talk out, whatever you feel like. Now the problem is like this. If this is the state of Am Yisrael, then we're going to have to fix that up, right? So in order to fix it up, we're going to have to figure out what has to be done. So, how would you all suggest that we resolve this problem? You don't have to say anything. But I'll explain that this is very related to the story I told you at the beginning of the shir. Because even though we've defined the problem, and that is that Am Yisrael does not identify itself as coming back to Eretz Yisrael, they see themselves as being from somewhere else at this point. Where does the problem lie? Is it that the ink has fallen off, the letters are no longer there, or they're too weak to be read properly, and in fact the Sefer Torah is possible? Or is it that there's something covering it over? There's wax on it. The Sefer Torah is intact, it's kosher, it's fine. We just have to peel off the wax in order to be able to read what it says. You understand? You have a Sefer Torah. In order to be able to create the Torah, you have to read from the Sefer Torah. You won't be able to read from this Sefer Torah because it has the wax on it. But it's a kosher Sefer Torah. The problem is you can't see the letters. You got to bring someone to peel off the wax. What is the problem of Bnei Yisrael in the Midbar at this point, in terms of their Egyptian identification, in terms of their perceiving Hebron as being Sheva Shanim Divnita B'fnei Tzoan Mitzrayim? Is it that they've lost their connection to Eretz Yisrael? They just don't see what they have to do with the place? Or no? the connection is there, but there's wax on top of it. There's something covering it over. If we can just remove the wax, we better remove it carefully, because if you pull the wax too hard, it can pull the ink off with it, right? But if you just remove the wax, then the letters will be clear and shining underneath. What's the problem? Because if the only problem is that there's wax covering it over, it's not so difficult. We just have to wait for the wax or something to be removed, or to evaporate, or something or other, to remove the Egyptian identification, and then the identification with Eretz Israel is going to be right there underneath. But if, because of the Galut Mitzrayim, we've lost it, then it's going to be tough. Then we're going to have to bring in Zionist classes, and then we're going to have to do all sorts of things in order to bring back the Argasha that we're Bnei Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, L'cha Atenu Ta'aretz Hazot. Does the next era succeed in coming into Eretz Israel? Yes, they do. Is it a problem for them? No. Why should they be more attached to Eretz Israel than the previous star? The previous star was closer in time to the Avot. No, 40 years closer. Why should the later generation have less of a difficulty entering Eretz Israel than the previous generation?
Because they weren't born.
Because they had no attachment to Mitzrayim. That's what it comes down to. Remove the attachment to Mitzrayim, and the attachment to Eretz Israel sort of just bubbles right up. It's there. It's okay. Not that the lesson and the punishment wasn't necessary. It undoubtedly was. You know, in Parshat Matot, Moshe Rabbeinu gets a terrible scare. He gets a deja vu. Shevet Reuven and Gad come to him and say, listen, we're happy to live in Ever Yarden Mizrachi. You don't have to go into Ever Yarden Ma'aravi. And he suspects them of being afraid to fight the wars of the Canaanim. And he gives them a whole harangue. It's one of the longest speeches up to Sefer Dvarim. You know, there are very few long speeches up till Sefer Dvarim. He says, "Kosu avotechem." You're afraid to go over. They reassess and they come and say, "No, we'll go over and we'll fight the wars, but we want to live in this part of the wider Eretz Israel, rather than the uniquely special part on the other side." But they weren't afraid. They were attached to Eretz Israel. Baruch Hashem. One of my own questions with the diaspora Jewry today is exactly this point. I have to admit. Here I can make a joke. In New York, I can't make this joke. Sometimes I get the sense that portions of diaspora Jewry regarding the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Israel are like a tinok shenishba. It's somehow as if they were not aware that there's such a mitzvah. It's like they never heard of it, you know. And so the joke is that they named the neighborhood in New Jersey after this idea, the Tinok Shenishma. This is on tape.
Yeah, it's okay.
Don't show it, Tina. But it really is a question. What message do you come back with? My son studied at Bar Ilan like a brother. there for undergraduates. He took a course. I forgot what the course is called. Apparently it's a well-known course in Bar Ilan. And he said that one of the things he learned in the course was that when people get data in the social sciences, the tendency is to interpret the data to support your a priori assumptions. And that you will often succeed in doing exactly that, regardless of what the data is.
Classic.
So here the Meraglim come back with all sorts of information about Eretz Israel, and instead of viewing it as look at this great fruit, look at how it builds people to be big and strong and powerful, they come at the they look at this fruit, this overgrown fruit, it's meant for a different kind of people, where like grasshoppers is compared with these people, we see ourselves that way, they see us that way, it's a mess. And Alon Alevi Irrational Taki Nachol Nuchala, the message of Yeshua and Kalev, just gets lost. And I wonder, in coming to establish communities, which Thornhill certainly is, and Toronto as a whole certainly is, what is the feeling about Eretz Israel? What is the feeling? I was once talking to the person who at the time was the Secretary General of the Jewish Agency. And he told me in his most recent meeting with leaders of the diaspora community, they told him we don't want to be called the exile anymore. We want to call us diaspora, dispersed. All right. We're not in exile. We're here. We're here. We love you. We support you. We want to see you thrive in Israel. But, we're not in exile. Is there a sense of being in galut, in exile? I suspect that there is, but it's covered over, like the Jews in Mitzrayim, in the Midbar over here. And it's going to take some uncovering, but it's going to take some uncovering. Okay. Should I stop here, or could I have time to go on?
You can ask. People have to
go.
How much time do you need? 5 minutes? 2 minutes? 20 minutes? An hour?
I can keep talking. All right. I'll talk for 5 minutes, and then we'll give you a chance to leave again. Okay?
There you go.
Right after the parsha of the Meraglim and the
very polite, they're Canadian.
Yeah, I forget. Okay. Right after the parsha of the Meraglim, there are 5 parshiot that seem to have nothing to do with each other and nothing to do with the Meraglim either, ostensibly. I'd like to try to point out connections between the end of Parshat Shlach and the first half of Parshat Shlach, which is about the Meraglim.
You can take my direction or something.
If you say this, if you were going to say it, tell me if this is what you were going to say. Alright? Rabbi was going to talk about V'lachem, you're going to get there, right? Okay.
Okay.
That's true. So I'll emphasize something else. In each one of the parashos, there's a word that repeats itself. That it's found in other places in the Torah also, but it's found in tremendous concentration. Dafke here, the word is l'dorotechem. In the opening parasha, which talks about the nesachin and the shmanim that are brought together with every carbon, at the end it says that a ger also has to bring the same nesachim on a carbon. And suddenly the word the Dorotechem pops up. Let me just find it quickly. And there we are. The Chiaguritchem ger asher ger o asher betochem the Dorotechem. Vasayisher reach nechach Hashem kasher tatzu ken yaseh. Number 1. number 2, in the parasha of Chala, which comes immediately afterwards, it says, Mereshit Rusotechem Titnu Lashem Truma Lidorotechem. In the parasha of the Korban Tzibur for being Oved Avodah Zarah, which is a horrible thing to imagine. It says, Et Kol Asher Tzivah Hashem Alechem Yam Hashem El Yom Asher Tzivah Hashem V'Hala Lidorotechem. The next parasha it doesn't say it, but it's a parasha about Shabbos, about Chilul Shabbat. And we know the notion of the Dorotam by Shabbat from Shamru V'nei Yisrael Ta Shabbat, Lasot Et Shabbat, the Dorotam B'Ritola, right? And again in Parashat Tzitzis it says, Daber V'nei Yisrael from Atzalei B'Sulem Tzitzit, HaKamsei V'Gdehem L'Dorotam. Emphasized in these parashiyot is that despite the fact that this generation, this dor, is not getting into Eretz Yisrael, the Dorotechem we're going to get back. The next generation is going to get back, and ultimately all the generations are going to be there also. And the ability to be connected to Eretz Yisrael requires this perspective of the Dorotechem. It requires a perspective of this star is connected to the next star, is connected to the next star, is connected to the next star. It's connected to earlier Dorot. It's connected to the Dorot of Avraham Avinu, who was told, V'dor Revi'i Yashu Loheina in Brit Bein HaBetarim. The average age in this room is about 20, if you don't count me and Rabbi. It's hard to think in terms of Dorot. An effort has to be made. It's worth making that effort. If you make that effort, and you understand that you're a Dor, and that you're connected to previous Dorot, and that on some way of counting, there was only 4 Dorot, both in Shevet Yehuda and in Shevet Levi, that got back to Eretz Yisrael after Galut Mitzrayim, then you perceive it differently. Yetziat Mitzrayim was 3,400 years ago, something like that. How much?
3,326.
Okay.
Of Rabbi
Okay. Fine. So that's if you count years. If you count generations, it's much less. How many years is a generation? Pick your number. 25 years. What's 25 into 3,326? 120 something, 130 something. And my generation, I was zocheh to know all my grandparents. But a lot of people in my generation were not, because of World War II. My guess is a lot of you, maybe all of you, know your grandparents, and you were zocheh to sit at a SCHRADER with your grandparents. So you can cut that number in half. You can get most generations succeeded in hearing about Yetziat Mitzrayim, not only from their parents, but from their grandparents as well. So from the 120, 130, it comes down to 60 to 65. The Masoret of Sipur Yetziat Mitzrayim has been transmitted in an ultimate way well less than 100 times. And B'ezras Hashem, we have it strong, and we're going to get back. Okay, Eretz Yisrael. I'll stop again.
Sure, thank you very much. Sure, thank you all for coming.